Hi, it's Lee Blake here. The reason for this video is that it will help us save loads of time on the discovery day. So it's just a little bit about my background and how I got into supported accommodation, and it's kind of linked, and it will link into what we do with you guys on the day and how you'll pitch your angle to the organisations that you need to speak to try and get into supported accommodation. So a little bit about me. So I've always kind of been crazy about property, really, and I think that was my upbringing. So my mum and dad split up when I was about 7 or 8, and I remember I had to share a bedroom with my mum and my sister for years and years and years. So housing has always kind of been an issue for me. And then I tried to buy my first property, I think just after I graduated, but I was kind of working part-time as a teacher, and I couldn't get a mortgage. No, I couldn't get a letter from a boss to get a mortgage, and I really regret that, because it was like 32 grand for a 3-bed house in Birmingham, that was like 1996, which would have been lovely. But then I graduated, and then I did something called, so before that I was at school. I was always bright, I was always intelligent, I was always in top class, but I got excluded from school 6 times in the last 2 years and kind of totally messed up my GCSEs. But then luckily I wanted to go travelling. That was kind of my plan. My mum said don't go travelling until you're kind of 18, because I'll worry about you. And a couple of teachers that got on with said, listen, you're bright, go to college, you'll really enjoy college. So I ended up going to study travel and tourism for a little bit, and then I transferred on to management, and then I ended up graduating with a 2-1 5 years after being excluded from school. And I've always had the kind of mentality that you kind of play hard, work hard. So because I didn't have a computer when I was younger, I was in the resource centre till like 10 o'clock till I got kicked out studying. But then I'd go to the bar. I didn't go to the nightclub, but I was always back at college at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock lectures. So I was always good like that. So graduated, and then I did TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language, and that was only a month course, and that gave me kind of license to go anywhere in the world really and teach. And I ended up going to Thailand, and I was there for months teaching and partying. I was a young guy, and then I travelled around a bit. I was supposed to go and start work in Brazil, but that job fell through because the kind of migration laws changed in Brazil. So I ended up going to Australia, and I was in Australia for about 7 months teaching and travelling and chilling really. Then I came back and did a bit more travelling in Europe, and back to Thailand for a bit around there, and then came back home and this was 1998, and it was World Cup in France. And one of my biggest regrets, I didn't go to World Cup because I'm a big football fan, and Jamaica were playing. My dad's from Jamaica, so yeah, that's a big regret of mine. But I was absolutely like skint. But then I went to Japan for 3 years, and I was able to save up, which was for me like a good chunk of money that helped me invest in property. So after 1 year in Japan, I'd saved up about 15 grand, came back, tried to buy a place in London, and it was 160 grand. It wasn't Islington, but it was kind of like Highbury, and close to Highbury tube station, like 2 minutes walk. And it was 160 grand for like a 4-storey block, 4-storey house. But it could have been title split. There were loads of different strategies. And more importantly, it was 160 grand. So I thought, I've got 15 grand. I can maybe get a grand from my mum, dad, and mates, and friends, whatever. And I've got my 10% deposit. And I made a big mistake. I went to one bank, Halifax, in Ilford. And they said, oh, because you're living in Japan, you're now an expat, and you need a special expat product, and we've only got one of them, and that means a 25% deposit. Obviously, my mum and dad didn't have 25 grand spare in the bank or down in the back of their sofa. So I didn't even know there was such a thing as mortgage brokers back then. I just kind of thought, oh, probably can't afford London because I need a 25% deposit. So I went to Birmingham, bought a little kind of flat in Birmingham for 43 grand, and I had the 25% deposit. And I did well on that. From viewing to getting the keys, it was 3 weeks and 5 days, and literally on the Friday, I got the keys. Gave the keys to a mate, and I said, oh, I've just been to Curry's and I bought like the white goods, but can you like sort the rest out for me? And he did, and I rented that kind of solidly for about 3 or 4 years, and then I went back to London and flew back to Japan on the Friday night, and flew to Thailand for a little bit, and then to Japan, and then stayed in Japan for another 2 years, saving up more money. Came back to England, and took me a while, but then I got a job as a youth worker and a teacher for Birmingham City Council, and kind of working with young teenagers in the inner city that had been kicked out of school. It's called alternative provision. And then I ended up it was a part-time job that went to a full-time job. Then I went to like project leader, I suppose, of a small project. And then I ran a £500,000 ESF project, which was kind of troubleshooting other youth work projects and giving them a bit of funding. So all around alternative education. But I also, kind of as a sideline, and because I just thought it was common sense, I started to grow a small portfolio. But my job and the career was kind of like the main thing, if you know what I mean. That was the way that I was brought up, and property was never something serious. It was like fun money, so I did a lot of travelling. I went to a lot of nice restaurants and stuff. But by 2007, I had about 5 or 6 properties, and I'd flipped 1 or 2 as well. But I was getting kind of itchy feet around business, and I think my first son was born 2005, and then my little son was born in 2008, so I had some properties and some rent coming in. I had my job, but I was really cheesed off with the job and the bureaucracy of working for the council. And then I had an idea to start a business, and it was mainly like t-shirt printing, and that kind of morphed into a social enterprise. And if you don't know what that is, I'll send you, it's kind of like I'll send you a 1-page about it, but it's between a charity and a business. In the middle is a social enterprise. So that morphed into a social enterprise, and I was helping young people around entrepreneurial skills. But 2000, I knew that the property market had been too good for too long, and I'd done well out of it. So I sold all my properties just before the crash, which was great timing for me. I can't say that I knew that the crash was coming, but I knew that if you study the history of property market, there's ups and downs and recessions and booms and busts, and it had been too good for too long. So I thought, actually, I can't be a good dad, start a business, have a job, and run properties, because I never use agents. So something's got to give, and unfortunately, I chose to sell all my properties, which at the time was the right thing to do. But if I knew then what I knew now, I would never have sold my properties. I think one of the big things for me is where I was kind of brought up in a working class household, I just kind of got subliminal messages, I suppose, that mortgages are bad, debt is bad, pay off your mortgage as soon as you can, because it's kind of like a noose around your neck. So that's what I did. I sold them. Luckily for me, I didn't waste the money. So I sold all properties on buy-to-lets and kind of HMOs, and I was doing student HMOs, and just kind of got out really. But I paid off my mortgage in a little house in Moseley, and hopefully we'll go and see that. Still got that. And I bought a holiday home in Spain. That was always a kind of dream, and I stuck a chunk of money in the bank. Like I said, just if I knew then what I knew now, I would never have paid off my mortgage. I would have remortgaged all my 5 or 6 properties. Maybe found a good agent. I wasn't networking or even reading that much about property. It was just common sense and a bit fly by the pants kind of stuff. I didn't really know mates that were doing this kind of stuff. A lot of my mates were just kind of career-driven type people. So I didn't have a mentor or anything like that. So yeah, if I could turn back 10 years ago, I would never have sold anything. I would have kept them all, just rented them out, remortgaged them, and then when the crash happened and everything dropped by 30%, 40%, whatever, people going to auctions, buying stuff really cheaply, I could have really been in there. And even back in those days, I think I bought my first property with that expat mortgage. That was 1998, but by 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8. I didn't know at the time, because I wasn't doing any networking or that much reading. It was really, really easy to get mortgages, and I had a job and blah, blah, but there were 100% mortgages and all that, and I know that now, but back then I just didn't know. And you don't know what you don't know. So I don't cry over it or anything, but it was like, bugger, if I'd have known then, if I'd have known that then, it would have been, my life would have been quite different. And I suppose also it kind of spurs me on really. So now I've got 6 properties, so I'm back where I was, but in the last kind of 2-3 years I've kind of got them, and I've sold a couple recently at auction as well. So I've kind of used it to just spur me on and kind of think, I'm kind of going to get back to where I was, but even better. And I've studied loads. I do loads of networking now, and loads of learning and loads of research. So I'm not an expert, but I'm a lot more informed than I was 10 years ago. So yeah, the reason that I'm telling you all this is because when, hopefully during the day, you'll know a little bit about my background and the kind of pitch that I did and can put together to go and speak to the organisations that you need to do supported accommodation, and we'll cover more of that on the day. So yeah, that's just, I just wanted to just share a little bit about my background with you guys, and kind of, I don't like this phrase, but my property journey. So I look forward to seeing you on the day. Cheers. Bye bye.